Okay, I'm back, although this is going to be quick, and I don't think I'm actually going to finish the direction. Well, I mean, I will finish the direction I was talking, but I don't think I'm going to finish the conversation as a whole. And we've went from wine to cacao, so downshift. I'm telling you, though, the drinking thing is so fascinating to me because my glass of wine is in the fridge. Like, literally cannot finish. I mean, I'll drink a cocktail. Like, I love an espresso martini, but it blows my mind, truthfully. Like, I have no desire most of the time. And even when I think I do, like, I bought that bottle of wine and I'm sure I'm going to drink it. And it will probably, today's Monday, like, I like pretty much guarantee I won't probably even drink the rest of that before I go. I mean, maybe I will. I leave on Saturday, so maybe Friday night or something. But still, like, I just feel like, why? Sometimes I like want wine. Because what else am I supposed to drink? Anyway, so I was kind of like and now I probably have no lipstick on and whatever. So I ate like I guess it was Greek. It was like rice with like a garlic yogurt and lemon. It was delicious, but I am like breathing dragon fire breath right now. Like, so much garlic. Glad you can't smell me. And I'm in my gray jumper that I wear every day. I swear when I'm back in May, I'm just packing. Well, in May it'll be warm again. I'll have to like look at the weather. If you are coming to Portugal, it is not warm. At least in this time of year. Like, it's like very damp spring. So like boots, jackets, sweatshirts, aka jumpers. Lisbon, like dressy-ish, but even that, like heels, no. Like the streets are all cobblestone or like wonky. So like only like wedge or like thick, no heels. Pointless. Didn't need them. Haven't worn them. Actually, I haven't even worn the boots because the other thing too is like it's dirty. Like, not Portugal, like it's actually so freaking clean, but like dirt, like literally dirt, like dirty. Like there's dirt everywhere. So I personally, like, I have a really cute pair of leather boots over there that I'm not gonna wear because I love them and they're just gonna get filthy. So basically my entire wardrobe in Colorado, also van life, those wardrobes appropriate for Portugal. And for whatever reason, I packed very little of that attire. And like, I'm literally looking at my fur vest hanging up, like 3 pairs of pants that are just never going to get worn. Earlier, I had like dresses hung up that like are like formal dress, like formal, like pretty formal, fancy dress. Like, I don't even know what I was like. I do feel like, where was I going in my mind? Like, what were the itineraries that I was packing for? Because what? Anyway, I've worn this every day. Every day this thing has been on my body. I wash it twice a week. I'm not even kidding. Anyway, I was talking about my religious background, my religious upbringing. Part of why I am doing this is because I feel like I'm always censoring myself. So even just right then, I basically am always thinking about when I'm going to be talking about where I am because my ex has shown up uninvited twice. And I'm always feeling this like looking over my shoulder feeling. And I just want that to be over. I just want that chapter to be done. Not the direction I want to have this conversation go, but and it just like derails me, which is also just so frustrating. I just haven't been as motivated, I guess. I've been in this cocoon time, prioritizing my mental health and my emotional capacity. I'm feeling more and more like myself, like every week that goes by. And this stretch, especially in Portugal, has been a really beneficial time for me to just have some space, and I feel very at peace. My schedule is really interesting because my days start so much later, so I have my mornings really to myself. It's just been good. It's been good for me, and I feel myself coming back from hard stretch. I am a different person from who I was 5-6 years ago, and in some ways that's wonderful, and I'm so grateful for the versions of me that I'm Yeah, man. As this goes on, I'm gonna keep sharing more and more about my backstory. So the funny thing about doing something like this, like sharing something like this, is that the only people that will most likely listen to or watch these, at least for a while, are people who know me. I think that's probably what keeps most people from doing things like this, because that opens up so much opportunity for judgment, so much opportunity for gossip and criticism, and yeah, it's really uncomfortable. Because ultimately, like, those aren't probably the people that I intend to connect with. Yeah, my circle is really small these days. I have just a really tiny circle of people that I trust and that have really shown up for me and been there for me through really just like the darkest chapter of my life. Unraveling all this stuff, understanding all this stuff about myself, really. It's reflected in different relationships. It's reflected in different challenges, but ultimately it's me that is the common denominator. And so I've been in this process of figuring me out. But it's also been really I guess really lonely. Yeah, it's been super lonely because ultimately when you're figuring your own self out, you sort of shine a light on the things about yourself that you'd like to address and shift and change. And while you do that, the people around you ultimately either have to take a look at their own it's such a combination. Like, take a look at their own desires for change and also their own limiting beliefs about why that couldn't happen or shouldn't happen, and their own fears about being more authentically themselves or speaking up in a way that makes other people possibly feel uncomfortable, or putting up boundaries around the people in their own lives that maybe aren't really aligned with the direction they ultimately do desire to go. And so what I've experienced in that process is the more I just become more myself, who I really intend to be, the harder it has been for most people in my life to stick around. That has really happened a lot. Every evolution is different, but like people who knew me in my divorce process, they'd have to re-meet me today. There can be judgment around that version of who I was, but that's so far away from who I am today. And then people who knew me when I first started my business versus who I am today, so different. And people who, like, I feel like it has just been this massive shift of who I am. And I don't know what that means, really, I guess. I don't know if I'm not going to like label that like good or bad or weird, or I don't know. I don't know why that's happened necessarily. It has just been like an unraveling of getting down to who I really am, what I really think, and saying what I think. And that for me stems from a really intense, high control religious upbringing. That's my earliest connection to identity. So yeah, it's been a lot, but I've done it over and over, and I've allowed so much to leave my life, not just people, you know, I mean, obviously that's their choice most of the time. Some people I feel like I've been like, yeah, I think we're good here. No, thank you. But a lot of people have made that decision for me. It sucks even when you know ultimately that's the right thing for both of you, when you know like that person's not going in the same direction you're going. Again, like not good or bad or otherwise, like ultimately like we all just have to make the decisions around the people that we give our energy to for ourselves. And I'm not for everyone. Not everyone's going to see the parts of me that I intend for them to see, and that's their choice. All I can continue to do is show up as authentically as I can and trust that although right now my entire circle, even professionally, it's gotten so small. I built such a big network of people and I was so well connected for such a long time in different seasons. I've always been really well connected, really well networked, and that's something I enjoy. And this last year, especially, maybe even 2, actually it's definitely been 2, probably since I held my big event. It's almost like spring cleaning. Like, it's just like, I'm like, okay, we're going to go over here. And then I go through that process and it's, damn, okay, well, made a lot of space. So that's great. Really excited for whatever it is that I'm going to fill this space with in the future. And then before I've even been able to start to rebuild, or if I'm using this spring cleaning analogy, like redecorate or it's like, well, now we've got to look over here. And so then, okay, like, and then same thing. It's kind of like, whoa, where's everything going? Why did we just got rid of everything? And actually, if you know me at all personally, that is exactly how I am. Like, I will say, I don't hold on to things. If something is not serving a purpose in my life, if it's not adding value, I really am not one for having stuff just to have stuff. Even before, when I had a lot more money, that still wasn't really my thing. I don't really think that's ever been a value of mine. And again, I don't want to label it as good, bad, otherwise. I don't know. I just don't keep I don't need. and that just goes around in every direction. I feel like I want to invest my energy into things that are investing energy back to me. There should be a give and take. And so if something is going to take up space in my closet, I want it to be something that I'm going to really enjoy putting on. If not, go be in someone else's closet. Just go be somewhere else. So yeah, anyway, I feel like what's happened a million times over these last handful of years. It's been like I've spring cleaned over here and spring cleaned over here. And it's literally just kind of like, okay. We're squeaky, real squeaky. Maybe now we can bring some things in. Maybe now it's time for a rebuild. And I keep thinking I'm doing that, but I've just not been, for whatever reason, it's not been the right, it's not been right. 2 years ago when I moved back to Michigan, I thought, okay, this is the direction. And I do, in a lot of ways, it really brought things to the surface. It made me take a look at things kind of face value. Yeah. A lot of things with my family, my immediate family. I haven't lived close to my family since I was 18, 19. Yeah. So is it, had to happen, definitely valuable, because I think, I had to learn these boundaries. I was able to do it with friends first. I feel like that became my first kind of catalyst for putting boundaries in place and choosing myself. I started to really understand, like, okay, like, I'm not doing this anymore. This doesn't work for me. This was like after my divorce. I feel like after my divorce, my friend circle really shifted just naturally, because it just does. And I wasn't really consciously, it wasn't like intentionally, like I sought out to change my friend circle, but it had to change. And then that shifted a lot into work because of the pandemic. So when the pandemic hit, it was in close proximity. My divorce was in 2018, and then the pandemic hit 2 years later. So then work was like up to be evaluated. And then I moved to Colorado. And so that also, like, everything went together around that, because I didn't know anyone really there. So my friend circle, like, whenever you move, it's definitely a level up. And I had friends who came to visit, and we would do FaceTimes. There are always friendships that put in the effort equally, like, back to you. At least in my experience, I've always thankfully had that, even if it's just a few friends. I've never been really without. I know a lot of people have had experiences like that where they truly don't have really anyone. So it shifted a lot for me in that period. And then after work, it was my family. It was like friends first. That shifted and changed. Work and friends overlapped. That shifted and changed. And then it was like family dynamics that came up after my pregnancy loss. I was just done with things that didn't make sense to me anymore. I think this realization of like, it's not just for me that I'm done with this. I'm done with this for my daughter. I'm done with this for everyone who comes after me, because I'm never repeating this. I'm never, ever letting certain cycles that I've had to navigate repeat in my own lineage. That stops with me. There's so many things that are just never getting past me because I will not let them. I will heal them. I will go through whatever I need to go through. I will have the conversations. I will put the boundaries in place. I have, truthfully, I have done that. That's actually like a past tense thing. I feel like, nope. Nope. I will not allow that. That will not happen. So yeah, after my first pregnancy loss, I think that brought the family dynamic up to the surface. And then the last one for me was romantic relationships. I've always struggled in that area, but especially this last relationship, I clung on to this relationship. I mean, I literally remember actually praying, please, if everything else has to go, everything else has to go. I lose everything else. I have no money. I have very few friends. I have no idea what the point of my career shift has been. I don't speak to my family. All these things, please just let me keep this relationship. Please let me keep this relationship. And I feel like, yeah, it really took a lot for me to choose myself in that. And again, like I said, I'll talk about that maybe later. But ultimately today I wanted to just get back to the OG wound. And for me, that is this religious upbringing that I experienced. And then that was reflected in my early childhood development through my family dynamics. And I don't fault my parents. If anything, I feel sad for them. My dad passed away in 2012, so he's not here. My mom is still active in this religion. Her and I are not currently speaking. Yeah, there's so many dynamics, and I'll talk more about that. But really for me, I think just growing up in a environment where religion is so fascinating, especially the more extreme. There's a spectrum for everything, I feel. And so the more cult-based the doctrination of belief system is, the more control that is established through weapons like shame and guilt and unworthiness live. And so when you're little, you're under 7, I think is when all of your core beliefs are being developed. And so when those are conditioned through a lens of you have to be like this, otherwise you're this, and everything's black and white, and it really is like if you were to put on a pair of glasses, you're only going to see through that lens. And so when you're raised, especially in something like that, that's just life. That's what life is. And so you have to be able to first take off the glasses, which I did a long time ago, but then understand how by wearing those glasses for all the time that you did, your perspective was shifted and directed in a way that is not necessarily aligned or authentic to you. And so that for me has taken so much time and effort. And really just in the last couple of years have I actually consciously looked at that and faced that, and even really developed a relationship with what I believe to be God, higher source, energy, which I still am working on. That's not, for me, it's not, everything was so black and white in that area that now I'm actually learning to let it be more fluid and let myself try on beliefs and try on opinions and perspectives and not necessarily box it in so specifically, I guess. So still evolving, still changing. I do believe in higher than humans. I have a lot of interesting beliefs, I think. And they've developed over time. And some of them, again, I mean, I'm one of the best things I think that's come out of this process for me is I am so open to almost any theory around almost anything. I feel like I'm very like, maybe, yeah, I can see that. I can see that being real or not. And I think that's something that's really cool. I was definitely not always like that. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the ability to look at something someone else might believe and feel just like an openness to understanding versus a quick judgment on whatever it is, and then also them as a person for believing it. However, I really struggle with believing that you individually as a person are better, smarter, more connected, more spiritual, enlightened, whatever. Any form of hierarchy that exists traditionally in organized religion, where there's this connection to God that is better than this one, and you as mere peasant have to go through all this to be able to get to that, and make sure you're donating and make sure you're saying your confessions or you're doing your whatever. There's always these things that have to happen in order to have this. And I feel like, nope. As soon as that hierarchy structure comes in, I'm out. I feel like, nope. You can just go directly to source. You can just go right there. Like, just you and it. Nobody else involved. Nobody needs to be involved. And especially the second there's money involved, the second it's, yeah. And then that ripples into so many spiritual groups and spiritual communities, and those can be masked as business, entrepreneurship communities, but really they're forms of hierarchy that exist. I really feel like the last 5 years I have just been like, what is going on? Is there all like, what the oh my God. And again, the common denominator in all of these scenarios is me. So being able to teach myself that I don't have to look outside of myself for anything, really. Ultimately, I have the answers within me, always. It's just making sure that I'm in a position to quiet myself or pause long enough to have that guidance given to me and hear it and actually listen. That's the hard part, is there's so many things external that are available to us now that it's really hard to get quiet and still and realize that you yourself already know, and everything else outside of that is most likely a distraction, and in a lot of circumstances ultimately serving someone else's agenda in whatever way that is. So that for me has been a pain point in my life. My whole life, that's been a pain point. That's been a challenge in my immediate family dynamics, especially, which I will talk more about. I came to Lisbon, never coming here prior. I've never been to Portugal before. And I did this astrocartography reading and understood this. I mean, these are some of the woo things. So like, as I talk more, I'm sure I'll share more about tools and things and systems and whatever. But this one was really interesting to me because I do believe in astrology, and I do believe in like energy in certain geographic places like in the world. And according to this astrocartography structure, I had my Venus line, and it runs right straight through Portugal, and that line is for women. From my understanding, again, I don't know literally know basically nothing about this, but from what I do understand is that Venus line for women is a really positive line, and living within a close, I think it's a certain range of that line, can really help with almost like every area of your life in terms of love, money, fulfillment, friendships, connection. That line is really good. And I think for men, it's the Mars line. But anyway, my Venus line goes directly straight through Portugal. And so that was my like, book the flight, gotta just go. Like, what do you have to lose, truthfully? So yeah, I've been here now, I think 5 weeks, and next week I leave. So sad. I love it here. There's so many things I love. There's just endless number of things that I love about being here. But one of the things I really struggle with are like convenience things. And I think in Lisbon, if I were to have spent more time this trip in Lisbon versus southern Portugal, I think I would maybe have felt differently, because Lisbon is a city. There's a lot more in that sense. But also though, still like Portugal doesn't have Amazon. Like you have to order from Amazon Spain. So it is different. There is definitely a different caliber of convenience. But like little things, like anything I heat up, it's boiling hot or it gets cold. Like I feel like it's never just a good temperature. It's just boiling, scalding hot, and then ultimately cold because like, I don't know, it's cold in here. That's why I'm always wearing this sweatshirt because it's so cold. I've got a little space heater going. I've got this blanket, and that's just standard because the buildings are typically wood and stone. And so things get cold fairly fast if you're not drinking them. I need one of those mugs that sits on a hot plate. But even then I'd have to have electricity, and always running the electricity is challenging here too because anyway, yeah, it's just convenience factor. So my hope with kind of sharing my experience this way, first setting up just like who I am and why I'm doing this and what I've been learning about myself, and then also showing you in real experiences how I've done that through being abroad. And my intent is to be here, I think, in a pretty full-time capacity. There's so much I have to figure out. I'll probably get into that too throughout this process of being a bit more structured around these topics, but I have to take care of some things. I've been so avoidant over the last couple years. I've really just let things that used to be so important to me just not be important at all, to the other extreme where it's now I have a lot of things to clean up. I have messes to clean up, and it's going to take a little bit of time and some effort and some intention, but I can't be harder than all the rest of the things that I've navigated these last couple years. So that is my intent, is to clean up the things I have to clean up, but ultimately get myself in some capacity here, at least for a good stretch of the year. I'll have to figure out my visa. And then I don't really know what that will look like going back and forth. I think I'm going to go back and forth between Chicago and Lisbon. I have a great connection base in Chicago. There's plenty of places I could do that, but I think it's a little nudge. That chapter has come to a close, and it served me for the time that I needed it to. And I don't know. Again, I don't know. That's like the weirdest thing about all of this is I truthfully don't know. I have no idea what my next 3 weeks looks like. I just know I'm going to be in Chicago and I'm going to take clients, and that is technically my last scheduled time. And then from there, I'm going to go see a friend in Denver, and then I don't know. I might pop around a little bit. I have a work trip at the end of April, and then my flight back to Lisbon is in May. So yeah, we'll go from there. But I think that's a good intro. This is longer than I thought it was going to be. I thought 5-10 minutes, then I'd be going to bed, washing my face, brush my teeth. Okay, I'm going to log off now and put myself to bed. So I'll probably heat up my cacao. Okay, good night.